What's up, guys? Josh Lau here with the Card Guys, and today we're going to be looking at Yuki Bender's Bolton list that she took to the Realm 20K. We're going to analyze the deck list, and we're going to take a look at some of the streamed games, and it's going to be very, very similar to the last video that I did on Utah's Dorinthia list for Worlds. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you guys can check that out. That was uploaded about a week ago. So anyways, let's jump into the deck list and then we'll take a look at the stream game. All right, so this is the list that Yuki took to the 20K in Ohio a couple weeks ago. So this is a hybrid or switch style Bolted list. So running the Centauri Sabers as well as the Raiden. This setup looks fairly standard. There's three things here that I would actually highlight. First of all, I don't really see when we need Crown of Providence. The only thing I can think of is it insulates you against CNC once, but if you're built with some reinforced lines, that deters Bravos from going for that play. And honestly, blocking 10 is not actually the worst thing in the world if you ever read that they have it. So I would actually just stick with Warband and Boltyn. I don't really know when I would actually want Crown of Providence, except against Bravo. And even then, I think that, like I said, with Reinforced Line, you could get away with not having Crown. The other thing that kind of stands out to me is that this list is post Icelander, and there's a Soulbound Resolve here. Now, I do see the argument that against certain decks that like to throw large dominated attacks at you, you do have the option of bringing in a gigantic amount of armor. But I think that the Tunic is just too important in a lot of matchups for Soulbound Resolve to really even be in the conversation. The only two matchups that I would want Soulbound Resolve in is against Icelander, which is gone, and sometimes against Kano, although I think running Courage, No Ring Gloves, Halo, which is not in this list, plus Snaps or Radiant Flow is actually the best way to approach that matchup with the Sabers. Kind of fighting fire with fire. So the Halo plus the Null Ring Gloves, or Halo plus Null Ring Gloves plus Radiant Flow, basically means that they can't kill you with the combo. And basically playing Raiden plus Soulbound Resolve against Kano is kind of playing into what they want. Because sure, you could prevent a damage of the Soulbound Resolve, but then you also have to have floating with the Null Ring Gloves. So yeah, I wouldn't take that approach. So TLDR, I would cut the Crown, I would cut the Resolve, I would add a Halo. So Halo, obviously very, very good against Kano, but also great against ultra fast decks where you're running the Centauri Sabers and you don't need the armor. So I'm thinking Max and Phi, I would probably run the Halo. Against Katsu, you probably want the Warband just to insulate you against Dishonor, and it just having a little bit extra armor against Katsu is nice. So that's kind of how I'd approach the equipment suite. Other than that, looks pretty standard here. Let's take a look at the list here. So looks like this list is arranged so that everything is together. So we'll just kind of like scroll through here. Okay, so this list, very similar to my Worlds list, is running 0 blues. But this list is closer to 50-50 on the reds and yellows. Actually, it is exact 33-35. Okay, so almost 50-50 on the reds and yellows because this deck is not running Prayer Boltyn. So let's take a look here. BB Bravado, red, and let's look at the charge cards. So this is fairly standard. Bolts, fairly standard. Engulfing Light, this is a stylistic choice. The reds are quite good. Light the Way, this is a good sideboard card. If your deck is not running Boltyn because it's a red. But this is a good card, especially good with if you have enough pumps as well. It basically becomes engulfing light because you don't have to give it go again. So that's quite nice. Take flight standard here, and then V. So yep, pretty standard, all the chargers there. Okay, so I guess let's talk about these cards here, because these are sideboard cards. These plus the D reacts. Yeah, so those are probably the main sideboard cards. I'll be honest, I could see an argument for these, but I don't particularly like these cards. The main issue is that the only way for these to get value is for your attack chain to go wide. And you know, obviously Cadaver's Contraband could get a popper back on top. It could get Lumina back on. Wait, hold on. It can own non-attack action, so it has to. Okay, so it's gonna get Lumina back basically. So, is that good enough? Probably. I mean, it could also. I guess it could also get V for Valor, or Spirit of Arena if somehow that gets discarded. I don't know if putting Lumina back on top is good enough here. It's a popper, but it's a red non-light card, and red non-light cards have a very, very, very high bar. I've mentioned many times that playing Command and Conquer without Pummel and without Tunic, I don't think progresses the game plan of many decks. Unless you actively want to slow the game down, which I don't think Bolton really wants to slow the game down. The only time Bolton would be trying to slow the game down is when he's trying to build up soul at the very, very beginning of the game with things like Soul Shield, maybe charging with a Take Flight or an Engulfing Light or something like that. These, if you just send this at most heroes, like, I don't think it's going to accomplish anything. And then if you want to have a wide attack pattern, then you have to keep a yellow plus this. So, honestly, I would just stick with Bolting Blade as a popper. Also, there's if Prism starts coming up as well, the difference between a 7 and 6 power card is going to be massive here. So I actually wouldn't run any of these personally, but I can see there being some argument for them, but I don't really think these are optimal, to be frank. Although it is pretty cool that it works well with this card here. So Courageous Steel Hand can target these. Resounding Courage cannot target these, right? Because it says target Light Warrior. This just says target attack. So, yep, running the Steel Hands here makes a lot of sense. Good card. We have 5 D-Reacts here. I do think the deck list should try to make room for Reinforce the Line somewhere. So then you have Sync Fate, Soul Shield, Reinforce. That gives you excellent defense. 2 copies of Resounding Courage. I've played with this card a little bit. I'm still unsure of whether or not I like it. If you use it off a Tunic, that's pretty good. I think it's okay. I think it is. I mean, it also creates a Courage token, which is very useful for this type of style of deck, right? Because this type of style of deck definitely wants to have a Courage token every single turn. Got 3 snatches here. So I don't know how I feel about the snatch as well. I think it's okay. It actually synergizes more with the Saber plan than the Raiden plan, because oftentimes people are not blocking your first 2 attacks, which is your if they are blocking your starter, they're blocking it with like a card plus armor, and then they're never blocking your Raiden. And then when you throw Snatch, generally are going to be prepared for it. I think people have kind of learned that, at the end of a chain comes bolt or snatch. So a lot of people kind of see this coming. But it's still a powerful card. It's a good one card hand. Again, non-light cards. I think Illuminate is decent here. I think Statue is also decent. Stylistic choice here. But I think it's fine. We got Take Flight, red and yellow. We already talked about that. That's fine. We have the bannerets. Nothing much to say here. The courage and the gallantry are the best. And then fairly standard on the rest of the deck list. Although there are 2 copies of V for Valor here, this is a card that is quite interesting. I think this allows you to play a little bit more mid-rangey, or lets you set up a little bit more against decks that you need to set up against. And this could kind of create a checkmate situation at the very, very end of the game when you have like a card with Tunic and you swing Raiden. Like, they basically have to block for 5 or they die. And if they do block, then you just arsenal the card. So I could see this card being decent. When I first looked at this card many months ago, I was very, very I was just like, this doesn't even have go again. This doesn't block for 3. Like, we have to pay a resource to destroy it and charge a card. But actually, like, the more and more I look at this card, the more and more I play with it, I think 1 or 2 copies here are quite good. Also allows you to charge when you don't have a starter, which is nice as well. So yeah, other than that, fairly standard. Yeah, like I said, Bolting Blade is missing. I do think Bolting Blade is one of the better cards. Pairs nicely with V. Yeah, and I already talked about how I feel about these cards, so yeah. Overall, I think the deck list is pretty solid. This list is significantly more aggressive, though. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's take a look at the stream match now. All right, guys, this is the Swiss match between Yuki and Brodie. And they played again in the top 8, but I think this is the... I haven't watched either match, but I know that this game was much closer than the other game. So this is the game that I thought would be much more interesting to analyze. Because if Azalea high rolls you, Azalea high rolls you. And not much to speak of there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the matchup, and then we'll kind of go from there. So Azalea versus Bolton, or I guess we're looking at this from Bolton's perspective. Bolton versus Azalea. So this is a matchup where you have to be quite prepared. And what I mean by prepared is when they come in with something large and has dominate, you need to have a D-React ready. Or you need to be kind of lucky and hope that the on-hits are just extra damage. But a lot of or stuff like inertia tokens, that doesn't matter if you're going to use your arsenal. So we know that Yuki's list does not have access to reinforce the line, only running 5 of the 6D reacts as well. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue there. So also there's a possibility that you could actually run Shunt and Bolted now. I think that is a decent option, especially if Azalea is running around everywhere. Maybe even like 1 copy of Red Shunt might be just enough to kind of freak them out. So speaking of Shunt here, you obviously run Shunt with Tunic, and I know that Yuki's going to flip over Soulbound Resolve, and from my experience, basically you never want to run Soulbound Resolve as extra armor. That's not the point of Soulbound Resolve. Soulbound Resolve was probably literally printed to combat Icelander. There's very, very, very few situations where you actually want to be blocking with it and charging a card on defense, unless it's a banneret. So, like, literally, there has to be a banneret in hand on the turn where you want to use your armor, or you're not really getting good value out of it. And extra armor is just not the right way to deal with. When Azalea can go like 14, 15, 16 tall, the armor just is not going to help. You just need the heavy D react. You need the reinforce the line. And so basically the tunic allows you to make better pivot plays and take advantage of if Azalea stumbles a little bit. The tunic really allows you to just, get extra value there. So I think in every single matchup now that you're playing Raiden, you should be running tunic. It is that important to the deck. And we have to think about, like, what does that mean as well? Like, if you're running tunic in 85% of your matchups, that means you need to be playing a little bit slower, because you want the game to go like 9 to 12 turns, right? Because you want to get a couple activations off of tunic. But Boltyn's not really a hero that wants the game to drag out forever, because he is susceptible to fatigue, right? So the sweet spot for Boltyn is like somewhere between like 9 and 15 turns, right? And that basically means that how you build your deck has to change as well, right? You don't want to be too balls to the wall aggressive here. All right, so I'm not sure who won the dice roll there, but Yuki is going first. So Light the Way, charging a red here, so this is not going to have the bonus. So every Bolton player in the world is a little bit different on how they represent where their soul is. Some people put it under their hero, some people put it to the side. I've seen people put it horizontally next to their equipment. Many ways to use it. So speaking of equipment, we got Warband, Ironsong Versus, Soulbound Resolve, and Snaps. So if you want to take the route of like a ton of armor against Azalea, I think you probably run the Radiant Flow, and then you run this as well. I think that's actually a decent option, is to run Radiant Flow plus all this, because that gives you access to 9 if you count the Soulbound Resolve charging. So that's a ton. That's actually that basically stops 12 Dominate with just a card from hand. Okay, so Azalea's first turn here. So on Azalea's side, we got Bullseye Bracer, Skullbound Crossrep, Tunic, Snaps, very standard here. All right, Deadeye pitched for Drill Shot here. And so Drill Shot's just another reason as well why like Soulbound Resolve is like less good as well, because it's just giving it an extra target here for the Drill Shot. All right, Ravenous Rabble reveals Seek and Destroy. So we have to talk a little bit about how Azalea decks are built these days. Most Azalea decks are built to be Warmongers proof. So they are running things like Ravenous Rabble and E-Strike and CNC and stuff like that. So and most of their pumps block for 2. So basically Azalea's defense is really, really garbage, right? But the issue is that Azalea has a ton of on hits that are relevant. So the best way to counteract decks like this, and in a very similar way Bravo, is let them go all in on a supposedly good looking hand, and then shut it down with Soul Shield, shut it down with Reinforce the Line, shut it down with Shunt, shut it down with your armor plus Sink Below plus a card from hand, something like that, right? And then pivot from there. And once Azalea gets on the back foot, it's very, very difficult for her to recover. So clean block here, 7 on 7. The only thing that Yuki needs to be worried about is Rain Razors. Most Azalea decks do run Rain Razors, but obviously they can't get as much value out of it as Lexi could. All right, so Beaming Bravado here. charging, I think that's a yellow. Maybe not. So another issue with running a deck that's closer to 50-50 is that when you draw your Beaming Bravados, your Light the Ways, some of the time you'll draw a hand with 3 other reds, and you won't get the bonus out of them. And without the bonus, this is a very, very inefficient turn, right? This is 3 damage, add a card to soul, and it's just going to arsenal the other card, right? So not exactly what you want out of your Bolton turns in general. So in my opinion, the best way to play Bolton is off of Tunic. And basically, you never want to be taking too many turns like what we just saw Yuki take. Like, attacking for 3, charging a card into soul is really, 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 really weak. Let's just put it that way. So one thing of note, Soulbound Resolve does affect Blood Rot Pox, so that we might see that come into play here. It also used to prevent Hornet Sting back in the day. All right, so Skullbound Crosswraps activation here from Brodie. And does he want to top this or bottom this? So I think we're gonna see some instances where Tunic is gonna make a big difference, and Soulbound Resolve is not gonna help significantly. So this will be Yuki's 3rd turn here, right? So we want to see if Tunic was on 3, would her turn be different here, right? So pre-med into Ravenous Rabble. I'm going to load with Death Dealer, draw, pump, and fire. Okay, so this is one of those situations where it's for 11 here, does not have, or 14, sorry, pre-med applies here. So I don't think there's dominate on this, so you just have to, you probably are just giving your whole hand plus a piece of armor. This is another reason why you need to build your deck with higher 3 block counts, because if Yuki has Cadaverous Contraband, V for Valor, Courageous Steel hand in hand, this actually becomes a very, very ugly block here, right? And looks like she's taking all of this. Okay, so pre-med, Seek and Destroy, Lace with Blood Rot, and Remorseless. So Remorseless, gonna basically all this says is you take a bit more damage and you can't keep any cards here. So if her hand is really, really good, this is fine, right? Now the bar for a hand being really, really good probably involves a V, probably involves a Lumen Ascension. And here we go. So the very first example of if she had Tunic, that would have been an extra card. Now, CNC is not a light card, so she couldn't have charged it, but still would have been an extra card, right? If she could have charged the card in hand, and then Tunic V, and then played CNC, and kind of gone from there. So Banner of Gallantry here, gonna give a Quicken token. Fairly important here, because so one of the issues here is that you can't double charge so easily if you don't have Tunic. And double charging V is where things get kind of ridiculous. Especially if you could keep a 5-card hand. So from Brodie's perspective here, he shouldn't block this. think he's just leaning over, just reading, making sure there's no on hit here. In 95% of situations, you should not be blocking via the Vanguard. Now, in the past, it was interesting because I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a card called Plunder Run, and Plunder Run Tunic V was one of my favorite things to do in the game. But alas, that is no longer in the game. So this is something Yuki's going to have to be aware of, is that Soulbound Resolve is on, so she will take 1 less damage from the Blood Rot Pox. So normally when I was running Soulbound Resolve, I would tap it just to remind myself that it was active. Not sure what they're doing. I think they're calling a judge here. I'm not sure why they're calling a judge. So overcomes the head judge here. Okay, let me talk a little bit more about why I like dragging the game out to 9 to 15 turns. So first of all, it gives you, especially against decks that can brick, it gives the opportunity for them to brick. Also, it allows you to deploy Spirit of Arena out, which is there's a strong correlation between putting Spirit of Arena out and winning the game. Also, you get to see multiple copies of via the Vanguard. All right. So probably searching for. So normally you almost snap grab Lumina here, but because you don't have Spirit of Arena out here, it's not the greatest here. I mean, Snatch here also does pretty well. So Lumina here represents 8 plus heal 2. Snatch represents 5, possibly more damage, right? So I think it's fine to grab Lumina here. Obviously, this is not what you want with without Spirit of Arena. Okay, using snaps here. I don't think you need to use snaps here with 2 soul and a quicken token here. You should have sufficient soul to keep this turn alive. And Snapdragons is one of those things where you really want to. Okay, okay, never mind. Okay, this makes a little bit more sense here. Although with the quicken token, actually you don't need to still. Okay, double Lumina here. Obviously, one of the best things that you could do if Spirit of Arena was out, this would actually be ridiculous. There, now that I think about it, with Lumina in Arsenal, it's actually better to grab Spirit of Arena. Is that true? It's a sneaky 8 versus an upfront 15. So, hard to say. Yeah, you could. I think tutoring for either one is actually fine. The long term play would have been tutoring for Spirit and then playing the single Lumen Ascension here. This is the more brutish way to get back in the game, is saying, okay, I'm going to deal 15 damage to you. Possibly heal. So I think as Brodie, I think you just try to shut this down if you are able to. The thing is, there's very few 3 blocks that that are non-attacks. I think Knock the Death Whistle is kind of the only one here. So there's actually The more I think about it, actually against Azalea, I think double Lumina is actually better than Spirit Lumina. Mainly because you're going to heal 6 most likely this turn. So it's actually 21 point difference here. So it's a 15 point value if they're blocking. It's 21 if they're not. So 2 cards into soul, heal for 2 here. And in comes Raiden again. And these are the type of plays that you have to do to get to have a chance against Azalea. Because like card for card, Azalea is pretty powerful. Like, don't forget, Azalea has Codex, right? And so the third swing there is going to get in, and I think that was another Lumina that went in. So all 3 Luminas have been used here, or are gone. Right, so isn't Remorseless you taking damage when you're playing action cards? So okay, so the Soulbound Resolve would have triggered on the first one then. Okay. Okay. There's another one. Okay. So Remorseless number 2 here. And Brodie did deploy 2 cards on defense. Okay. I'm going to do a little switcheroo here. And Tunic Death Dealer, one of the best plays that you can make. Okay, so keeping 2 cards here feels like a Snapdragon's turn. Could be snaps into Bullseye. Could be snaps into. There could be many things here. There could be a Rain Razors here. Yep. Brief note on the last turn as well is that so like I said in the deck tech, the bar for non-light cards red are really high. So if that CNC was a bolting blade, if that CNC was a United We Stand, that turn would have been much different actually. If that was a bolting blade, that would have been a ridiculous turn with Tunic as well. So these are the type of things where it's like, I know it might feel like I'm nitpicking a lot here, but like when you're playing a hero like Bolton, you really do have to like play it close to optimally. Being a little bit suboptimal in a deck that essentially has an IP penalty is really not the recipe for success. So on defense here, I'd like to see some armor usage here. I don't think a block here plus a Sink or Fate here is actually enough, because this feels like a Rain Razors, or at least a snaps into something. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is why I wanted to block with like a card plus two sets of armor. So I do see a Snatch in hand. Snatch is one of the best 1-card hands here. And yep, so Fate here, gonna opt. So what are you trying to opt here for? You're trying to opt for power cards. If this is not V, I think you send it to the bottom. Celestial Cataclysm I would also keep on top. Because you do need a Beacon of Victory as well. You do need an outlet for the soul. So keeping it on top. I'm gonna be curious to see what that is. Because the bar on topping a card as Bolton is very, very high. Because most of his cards are very bad. Not bad, they're role players, right? So, yeah. Brodie here, going to take a look here. You put it on the Soulbound Resolve. Just to deny the extra block. Iron Song versus is basically the lowest priority here. Warbound's okay. But these just mathematically the Soulbound Resolve is the best because it blocks one additional damage if Yuki decides to charge. And I feel like this is I feel like Brodie has just enough tempo and life lead here and is very likely to get some extra damage in that yeah, okay, so Brodie does make the correct choice in the end here. The that Yuki's going to be very hard pressed to keep a 5-card hand. And looks like we're skipping forward a bit. So Brodie did not snap. He had a choice of arsenal, decided to arsenal one of those. And snatch here. Now, there's a possibility that Yuki topped the card because it makes the snatch look way more scary. But in general, whether or not it's in arsenal or in hand isn't going to matter unless it's a D-react on top. So it's possible that Yuki topped the D-react and is trying to draw it and arsenal that instead of the card in hand. But I think it's reasonable to expect this to not hit. I think it's very reasonable for this to get blocked for 3 plus Tunic. Graveyard check here. You guys know what that means. That means Codex of Frailty. And Brodie's going to let it hit for 1. Okay, so he expects the game to go at least 3 more turns. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Let's draw here, and we couldn't really see what it was. But I would presume that it was not the Take Flight that is in hand. It is. I presume that what she topped with Fate Foreseen is in the arsenal now. All right, Brodie's turn. Tunic to 1, Skullbone, and this is a scary position here. If that's not a D-react in arsenal, very likely this turn hurts a lot. Very, very. This also feels like a Codex. Like every single time you grab your graveyard as a ranger, like it just screams Codex. Same thing when you play Dorinthia and you're grabbing your graveyard, like it screams Singing Steelblade. So let's see here. So Brodie's thinking on this opt here. Checking the graveyard 4 times now in the last turn cycle. So I think he's trying to figure out how to get value from like snaps and maybe Bullseye Bracer. It's possible that the card that he's opting right now is Rain Razors. He's need to decide if like, is it worth it to just go with an arrow from hand? Over on Yuki's side, 16 health, 4 armor here, plus 1 on the. Another thing I need to talk about is that you basically want to use Warband's block value ASAP, because you never know when you're going to need Warband to bail you out. So normally I recommend holding armor for as long as possible, but Warband is one of those cards, or one of those get out of jail free cards that you just need to be ready to use at any moment. So I would have liked to see the Warband block something recently. Warband is also significantly less good if you're not running a bunch of yellows, because you need to have a yellow to pay for Warband, and then you have to have a yellow to put into Soul to draw. So you basically need a double yellow hand that doesn't have a starter, which is, if you build your deck 50-50 on red and yellow, that's less likely to happen. All right, so I think that is Scout the Periphery, I think. Or Spire Sniping, sorry. Spire Sniping. So he's going to get to look at the top 2 cards, put a card. It's not exactly opt, basically. He can rearrange the top 2 cards. And he's already Azalea, so he's basically just setting up for next turn. So you're going to load up pumps here and fire. So this is going to... So... Okay, so this is 6 here. Not the most threatening turn here. I still feel like Brodie has a Codex, but we will see. The 5th time he checks his graveyard. Let's hope my read is right, because I'll look pretty dumb if I keep on saying Codex. And he doesn't have one. So yeah. So as Yuki, I'm looking at 2 things. One, we need to use some of our armor somewhat soon, because we need to ensure that we can actually get block value twice from them. Also, we have 5 cards in Soul, so we kind of want to drag the game out just long enough that we can use Sea Strike or Beacon effectively. Okay, snaps here. Yep. So if this is Codex, she is insured because her arsenal is she has an arsenal. Okay, so inertia token over on the other side, and okay, so yep. Brodie, don't check your graveyard 7 times. It gives it away. All right. Okay, so quick block there, and good on Yuki to recognize that without any float, the only thing that could be coming is a 0 cost 4 power arrow. Okay, so we got a frailty and an inertia token. We're down 11 life, but this is not insurmountable. I would say actually the game is fairly close here. Now, there is a little bit of an issue here with the frailty token. Like, if her starter is in Arsenal, it could be hard to get Bolton's ability on, depending on what that is. Pitching a Take Flight. All right. And is this a V of the Vanguard? It is. Okay, so this has to be double charged here. Or the turn, or it can be single charge if she has a pump. So 1 card only here. So this is 3 or 4. Now this does not have Go Again. And it cannot get Go Again. So there's a Beacon of Victory, I think, in her hand. So as Brodie, you make her have it. It's obvious that she has it, but you make her have it. It also makes it easier to defend a Bolt of Courage down the line. Okay, so beacon here. I might beacon here for uh hmm. I think just one going for a snatch here is decent. So unfortunately, all the luminous have been used. So you could have went for Celestial Cataclysm as well. I think is okay. Um, I'd like to point out this is the second V that she has paid for. So imagine again if the take flight was part of the combat chain, or was this is a double charged V. Um, how the turn would look differently here. Paying for V is really not where you want to be, because V of the Vanguard is amplified significantly when you have a fifth card. All right, Snatch is probably the best choice here, though. In fact, thinking, yep, yeah, it is the best choice. The only other option would have been Celestial Cataclysm. And we'll see if that difference is important here or not. Now, as Brodie, this is kind of interesting here because the ordering here is very interesting. I guess because you've tutored for Snatch, playing this way does deny the most information here. But if I was Brodie, I'd be kind of concerned what that last card is, because this was a single charged V. And yeah, this is I mean, it's not Lumina, so there's that at least. So Brodie taking 5 here. I don't know if that's correct here. I don't like giving. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make, is giving Bolton cards on a Via the Vanguard turn. It's just it's basically saying on hit draw a card plus 1 or 2 to the next attack. Like, you block those every day, right? Now it's possible Bolton bricks. There are some bricky cards like Soul Shield, Sink Below, Fate for Scene obviously would be garbage here. Looks like we have a Banneret, and we also remember we could have activated Iron Song Versus at the beginning of the chain if they had a yellow. But looks like we're just gonna go with a Raiden here. Getting powered down slightly because of the frailty token. Still powerful enough to get go again. So yeah, this turn's going to be pretty wide. So I think, not going for the Celestial was correct here. Bolt of Courage here. You got to block this, Brodie. You probably, if you have an arrow that you don't need, you'd throw 2 pieces of armor plus an arrow here. But yeah, this needs to be blocked here. You do not let Bolton draw multiple cards on a Via the Vanguard turn. And this last card here, only, I think it was a Banneret, right? So it's only going to get use if this actually hits. Because the inertia token is going to send it away. If this is a red bolt, it should be for 4. If this is a yellow bolt, it's coming in for 3 here. Very, very, very difficult to see the pitch color here, but we'll assume that that is a yellow bolt here. I don't think there's any combination of cards that Brodie could have where he wants to give Yuki another card draw here. And my game sense was correct that the ordering of Snatch into Radiant indicates that the last card in hand has a devastating on hit. Else you would have gone with the card in hand into Radiant into Snatch, just to ensure damage hits. Oh boy, is he thinking of taking this? All right, he's gonna have a sip of water and consider here. I really think you got to give Tunic plus Skullbone plus a card here. I mean, sorry, you just give Tunic or Skullbone plus a arrow is good enough here. I think we've seen all 3 Beacon of Victories as well, so. And he decides to take it. Oh boy. And no matter what card Yuki drew, I think you're playing the, unless it's a Bolt of Courage, I think you're playing the Banneret here just for max value. Light the Way. Okay, Light the Way, charging the Banneret is actually pretty good. That's actually the best thing that you could do with this. Actually real good. That's really, really good. Okay, so gonna get a Courage token to start the next turn with. And this is for 5. Oh boy. Oh, sorry, 4. Yep. 4 on hit go again, but the on hit go again does not matter. So I would say this is a misplay from Brodie. Do not let Bolton draw cards on the Via the Vanguard turn. This is how disasters happen. Yeah, there's 2 extra cards here that should not be here. It's possible that Brodie's hand just does not block at all. So, like, if you have a Rain Razors and like, I don't know, a couple pumps that don't really block well, I think you just have to go for it. Have to keep it. Go for it. We'll see what his hand is, but I do feel pretty strongly that this is likely going to come back to bite him in the ass here. We'll see. Especially if Yuki draws like Soul Shield here. Like, this turn could get shut down real hard. Tunic to 2 here. And he kept every single card here, so there must be a reason here. So I'm guessing he has like 3 pumps in hand. 3 pumps and an arrow. That way he doesn't have to take a risk here if this is or 2 arrows and he has the bullseye bracers. Or 2 arrows and rain razors. That actually makes sense if Brodie had rain razors and 2 arrows here to keep it. But this is very, very dangerous here. Like, as Yuki, I think you just hunt. If you have 1 more beacon, you just block until the cows come home, and then you swing Raiden with the card and make him freak out. Also, if you had Tunic, you could swing Raiden and then kill them with Resounding Courage. Ooh, is this going to stay on top or bot? Or looks like it's going to stay on top. So we're good. Okay, knock. Okay. All right. Okay. This, I'm starting to see what's happening here. So it's interesting that he didn't play the pre-med and he's going to reload into an Azalea swap here. Very interesting. Okay, grabbing Infecting Shot here. Infecting Shot, pretty good. I feel like there... Isn't there a better choice than that? seems odd to me, but okay. Oh, okay. Gonna give it an aim counter for Deadeye. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so this is 12 on hit, discard on hit, ponder on hit, blood rot. So this was what I was talking about, being prepared. Now, obviously, it's very, very difficult to be prepared when. So Brodie knew that there was not going to be a de-reacted arsenal, right? So literally, the only thing here that would save Yuki would be double reinforce the line, or yep, literally that's the only thing that saves her here. And that is one of the reasons why we should be playing reinforce the line, because there is a possibility for those type of lines. So this is actually going to get pretty rough here. Um, hmm. This is real rough here. Does have a de-reacted hand. I think that's also a courageous steel hand. So we could block for 3 here. We could also charge a card into soul to block for 4. Tough situation. And the key here, I think, is going to be I actually think you probably try to move the D-react into Arsenal here. The issue is that the Courageous Steel hand becomes really bad by itself. So there's that. All right, so we're going to be blocking for 3 plus a card from hand. I don't like this block. It's hard to say based on the hand. It looks like there is a Bolt of Courage. Okay, so it's going to be Bolt of Courage, charge a card, and then go with the Courageous Steel hand as the turn. But Deadeye is actually going to rip this hand apart. So okay, so you wouldn't have been able to keep the Fate Foreseeing anyways. Okay, that makes sense. So you take the Bolt here, and the hand falls apart. And you basically have to arsenal the steel hand and hope that you can keep 2 cards down the line. Alternatively, you might just send the take flight, because with the uh with the blood rot pox is going to bring him down to 3. I think with the courage token, you probably just send the take flight, because you're really just playing for with only 2 cards of soul, it's tough, because I would check for Beacon of Victory here. I don't think Yuki has Beacon left, but if she does, she should. That is her out to win this game with 2 cards in soul here. So here we're just trying to take some cards away from Brodie here. I think Brodie does have to give Yuki a card here, because this is, I think, coming in for 5. So That's a red take flight. Yep. So gonna need at minimum Skullbound Cross Wraps plus a card. So I think I really do think we're seeing like a culmination, like all the small decisions over the course of the game, having to pitch twice for V, coming into you're seeing that those were not double charged Vs, so there's a little bit of damage lacking, there's a little bit of soul lacking. Just a little bit more damage, a little bit more soul, a little bit, you know, a little bit more optimizations. I think Brodie would actually already be dead. So the issue here is that I think this is going to be a bullseye bracer turn from Brodie, depending on if he drew 2 arrows or not. And then that's going to be pretty difficult to defend. We also have we still have Rain Razors. We've only seen one the whole game. Very, very likely we see, looks like we have a knock, Bolton shot, and the Blood Rot puts her at an effective 3. No armor here. So here's a D-React checked. We know there's a Soul Shield in the Banish Zone. Yep. I don't think Brodie has a deterministic win here. So I think it's just safer to block here. Because all you need to do is fire like a pumped arrow to get 3 cards out of Yuki's hand, I think. That's probably the play here. Now, if he's grabbing armor here, that means he saw a line that kills her. Brodie just double checking, crossing his eyes. Sorry. Crossing his T's and dotting his I's. This block is taking a little bit of time. Block 4, take 1, go to 1. And the Blood Rot will trigger, taking Yuki down to 3. Tunic to 3. Op 2 with Read the Glide Path. Or is it Op 1? Op 1? Interesting to note he gave the Skullbone instead of the tunic here. Keeping it on top. Codex, okay. Grabbing Rabble, okay. So this is going to be a Rabble into Bullseye Bracer, Tunic, and a 1-cost arrow, most likely. And this is probably going to get the job done because Yuki's going to lose a card here. I think you gotta. So you basically know what the attack pattern of the opponent is going to be. It is rabble into a. It's going to be 4 into 5 basically. So you need to figure out a way to not die to that. Sorry, 4 into 6 because of bullseye bracer. I think snatch is probably the best choice. Yeah. So I can see I can see some arguments for having snatch in the deck actually because it's pretty good against codex. It's not actually it's not amazing, but it's one of the best 0 cost things that you can do. Rabble reveals sleep dart. Actually, that's devastating here because it could be bullseye bracer, load Azalea, and then fire off the sleep dart. So it has to be Fate Foreseen here, and then Soul Shield the last card. Or the yep. D-react into D-react, basically the only way to victory here. Oh, there was a oh, maybe Yuki should have grabbed Celestial Cataclysm actually. Because you have Soul Shield in hand, you're going to go up to 3 soul. I don't think she had the option to, but if she did, yeah, there's a Sea Strike in hand here. Because a Celestial Cataclysm for 6 would be pretty big pressure here. Okay, Bullseye Bracer here. Or is it better to Tunic Death Dealer load? I think both players realizing that we're getting close to time here. So Brodie is going to have to play a little bit quicker here. And all right. So we are going with the original line here. All right. Soul Shield here. I think taking 2 here. Yep. Snatch coming back over here. Because or did the glide path already pump the first attack? No, read the glide path applies to arrows. Okay. So I think Yuki's at 1 here. I might be wrong. Anyways, Snatch gonna get a card back here, and now any dominated attack here is gonna be pretty devastating. Codex here. So these actually haven't been the most amazing codexes, right? Because Brodie has had to discard for these codexes. Okay. Light the okay, Beaming Bravado, the choice here. Beaming Bravado going to be very, very annoying to deal with if she can actually keep a card in hand. A yellow in hand. Okay. And I think this is going to do it here. If she can give Dominate to it. Yeah, okay. Looks like if Brodie could give Dominate to it. Yep. Okay, so that's the game. I think I got to talk about most of my thoughts during that game. So from the Bolton's perspective, generally you don't want to pay for via the Vanguard, and I think the Tunic would have shone pretty brightly in that matchup. Um, we also saw how having non-light cards really hurt, because if you draw non-light cards when you have the V turns, those really hurt. Um, Also, we saw several hands that were kind of clunky because they did not have yellows, especially at the beginning of the game. And not having enough yellows also impacts Warband. We also saw that the armor could have been blocked a little bit differently as well. But these are things that you learn over time. Yuki's a very good player, and I'm sure she'll get the hang of. She already has very, very good Bolton fundamentals, but if she's watching this, I'm not nitpicking everything. I'm trying to help you improve it on everything. Uh, Anyways, so pretty close game. Actually, I think a little bit cleaner play, a little bit tighter, a little bit of change of strategy and tactics during that game. Could have gone differently, but yeah, not too bad. Okay, this wraps up the video. I will be back in a couple of days with my Bolton and Dorinthia deck lists for the upcoming, I don't know, Christmas January season. Uh, there'll be a couple updates based on Icelander leaving, basically. All right, this has been Josh Lau, the Card Guys. I hope you're having a good day. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye bye.